I found out I'd made the news before I even got home from my dad's retirement gala. Not in the way he probably hoped. No smiling family photo or legacy article. No, I was the headline for tackling a guy on a helicopter pad in dress boots. And honestly, I wasn't mad about it. My name's Cassie. I'm 29, I live in Sacramento, and I fix planes for a living. Real planes. Commercial, military grade, and VIP aircraft. But if you ask my dad, I'm just a mechanic. That's how he introduced me every time. This is Cassie. She's a mechanic, like he was reading off a receipt. No mention of my 6 years in the Air Force. No word about my current job managing high-level aviation diagnostics. Just that same damn label, like it was something to be ashamed of. Dad was a big shot. Retired now, obviously, but back then? He ran tech operations at one of the top aerospace firms in California. Big reputation, clean reputation. Corporate image was everything. Fancy suits, charity events, glossy business magazine features. He thrived on being respected. His new wife, Victoria, fit right in with the crowd. Perfect hair, perfect smile, and just as fake as the rest of it. He never outright disowned me. But skipping college to enlist in the Air Force didn't exactly fit the brand. That's when things got tense. Real quiet between us after that. So when I got the invite to his retirement gala, a whole weekend of dinners and speeches at some luxury lodge near Lake Tahoe, I almost trashed it. You should go, Carla said. She's my best friend and the only person who really gets it. Dress like a badass and walk in like you built the damn planes yourself. I didn't answer her right away, just stared at that cream-colored invitation with the embossed lettering. I could already picture it. Executives in tailored suits, their wives with frozen smiles, champagne and backhanded compliments. And me, standing there in heels I hate, being smiled at like I wandered in from the wrong parking lot. Still, Carla wasn't wrong. I didn't have anything to prove, but I sure as hell didn't have anything to be ashamed of either. So I packed the dress, shined the boots, took the drive to Tahoe. Quick note, before we get into it, share which city or country you're watching from. The whole thing blew up before I even unpacked my second outfit. But it didn't start with a helicopter or a fight. It started the second my dad saw me in that hotel lobby and said, "Cassie, this is my wife Victoria. She hasn't met my daughter, the mechanic." And then he smiled that tight, polished smile, like I was just a scuff on his trophy case. Victoria gave me one of those smiles that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, right, Cassie," she said, like she was trying to remember if I was the dog groomer or the cleaning lady. I gave a quick nod. "Hi." Dad handed me a branded welcome folder, like I was checking into a business seminar. Dinner starts at 6 in the Grand Hall. Dress is formal, there's a cocktail hour before. I almost asked him if they were still serving the same brand of cold shoulders or if they'd upgraded. Instead, I just said, "Got it," and headed to my room. The lodge itself was insane. Vaulted ceilings, stone fireplaces, huge windows overlooking the lake. The kind of place that screamed money. I unpacked fast, slipped into a navy blue dress, and laced up my cleanest pair of black boots. No heels. If I was going to get through the night, I needed to feel like myself. By 6:30, the hall was packed. People in designer clothes and stiff suits were sipping champagne and talking about mergers like it was gossip. I stuck close to the wall, trying to look busy scanning the room. Dad found me fast. "There you are," he said, motioning someone over. "Cassie, meet Derek. He's a VP over at Marsden Aerospace. Cassie's a mechanic." "Like oil changes and stuff?" Derek laughed, swirling his drink. Dad didn't say a word, just sipped his wine and nodded like that summed it all up. I clenched my jaw. "Aircraft systems. I handle diagnostics and mechanical repair for high-end aviation fleets, commercial and private." Derek blinked. "Oh, huh. That sounds technical." "It is," I said flatly. Dad had already moved on, waving down the next important person. He did it again and again. Each time with that same damn line. "This is my daughter. She's a mechanic." No mention of the Air Force. No mention of my current job. Just that title, tossed out like I was an oil-stained wrench jockey scraping by in a strip mall garage. By the 5th introduction, I stopped trying to add anything. Let them all believe I fixed carburetors and patched tires. At least then I didn't have to hear the polite fake interest. Dinner was plated and perfect. Roasted duck, something with saffron, little garnishes that looked more like decoration than food. I barely touched mine. Victoria sat beside Dad, laughing at stories she'd heard 1,000 times before. When one of the guests asked how long I'd worked in automotive, she actually said, "She's very hands-on." I excused myself before dessert hit the table. Outside, it was freezing but quiet. I stood by one of the fire pits near the lake, pulled out my phone, and texted Carla. Me, should have stayed home. This was a mistake. Carla, you being there is not the mistake. Him being a tool is. Me, every intro he says, just a mechanic. I swear, I almost lost it. Carla, that's his insecurity, not yours. He can't brag about you, so he plays you down. Doesn't change who you are. She wasn't wrong. But that didn't make it hurt less. I stood there for a while, watching my breath fog up in the cold air, trying to decide if I should just pack up and leave in the morning. Cassie? I turned. It was one of the staff, mid-30s maybe, wearing the event badge. Just checking if everything's okay out here. I nodded. Yeah, just needed some air. He gave a polite smile and walked back toward the main building. I stayed by the fire until my fingers went numb. Back inside, I avoided everyone, ducked out early, and headed up to my room. No one texted, no one checked, not even Dad. As I shut the door behind me, I kicked off my boots, tossed the dress over a chair, and sat on the edge of the bed. Tomorrow, I decided. I'd show up, I'd play it cool. But I wasn't shrinking again. I'd already done my time. They could learn to be uncomfortable for once. I turned off the light and got into bed, already planning how I'd spend the next day avoiding anyone in cufflinks. I woke up to a text from Carla. "Still proud of you. Don't let him shrink your light." I didn't answer. I was too tired to fake optimism. The group was off on some sunrise nature hike, complete with yoga mats and trail mix bags. I skipped it. I didn't need to connect with the landscape. I needed air that didn't smell like cologne and pretension. I pulled on jeans and my utility boots and walked toward the back of the lodge, past the vendor tents and tech displays, until I spotted the private helipad tucked behind a tree line. The view was clean, lake to one side, dense forest to the other, and totally quiet except for wind and the crunch of gravel under my steps. That's when I saw him, mid-30s, brown beard, coveralls with a company patch I didn't recognize. He was crouched near the helicopter fuel valve, fumbling with a wrench. I slowed my pace, watching him from the corner of my eye. The way he handled the equipment, it was off, sloppy, no gloves, no chocks behind the wheels. He kept glancing around like he wasn't supposed to be there. I stopped a few feet away. "Hey," I said, casual, like I was just curious. "You the tech for this bird?" He looked up too fast. Eyes darted, then dropped. "Just routine checks," he muttered, voice low. "Part of the event crew." "Uh-huh," I said, folding my arms. "You check the separator. That valve looks dry." He didn't answer, just stood, wiped his hands on his pants, and walked off, fast, head down, like he'd forgotten something urgent. He disappeared around the back side of the lodge. I stood there a minute, watching where he went. My gut twisted. That's when I saw the second guy, across the clearing near the storage tent, also in coveralls, also acting weird, like he was trying too hard to look busy but wasn't actually doing anything. He kept checking his watch, then glancing toward the woods. Something was off, way off. I walked past the first landing marker like I wasn't paying attention, then glanced at the second guy again. He looked up and froze when our eyes met. Then he turned and walked behind a row of display crates like he had a task waiting. But his pace didn't match his uniform. None of this felt right. The stance, the tension, the way they avoided eye contact. Real techs don't act like that. And definitely not around multi-million-dollar aircraft. I pulled out my phone and took a slow pan video of the area, pretending to record the scenery, but captured both guys on film. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly, but I knew behavior. And these two? They weren't crew. They were pretending. I thought about texting Carla. Instead, I just stood there, phone still in my hand, watching the tree line. There was movement again, faint, like someone else farther off was circling toward the rear maintenance shed. Another guy? I felt that tight pull behind my ribs. Not panic. Focus. Like my brain clicked into a different gear. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. This was my dad's event. And if I went around tossing accusations, I'd be the crazy mechanic daughter before noon. But I'd seen enough. Something was happening out here. I didn't know what yet, but I sure as hell wasn't imagining it. I ducked behind a cargo crate and waited until the guy near the storage tent started moving again. He didn't see me. I stayed low, trailing him past the last of the supply trailers and toward a service building marked Authorized Personnel Only. He looked around once, then slipped inside through a side door. I gave it a 10 count, then crept forward, sticking to the edge of the tree line. The building was older than the rest of the lodge, concrete, no windows on the backside. I circled wide, boots silent on the pine needles, until I found a cracked vent on the far wall. Low to the ground, just big enough to hear through if I stayed close. 2 voices, maybe 3. I crouched and listened. Choppers scheduled for 1650. Cargo's inside within minutes, one guy said. Pilots on a tight loop. We've got 2 minutes max, another voice added. We go as soon as it's down. Casey handles the codes. What about the external locks? Already rigged. They'll think it's a glitch. I didn't breathe. The whole conversation sounded too clear, too real. No joking, no hesitation. They had a plan. Someone unzipped a bag, plastic or canvas, and I caught a muttered line. Prototypes and power units. Top bin. Other tech goes straight in the case. They weren't just after gear. They were targeting the Gala's demo cargo. That meant classified systems, maybe company R&D equipment, packed into the chopper for the big presentation later. I risked a peek through the side window. 3 men, 1 pacing, 1 with a laptop, and the third digging through what looked like fake maintenance tags and ID cards. I snapped 3 quick photos through the vent. Their faces, the inside of the room, and 1 clear shot of a tag labeled with the lodge's logo and a fake name. Then I backed off, fast and quiet. I walked straight back toward the staff checkpoint and found a tall guy in a blue jacket with a radio clipped to his chest. Lodge security. Looked like the shift lead. Hey, I said, keeping my voice calm. You've got an issue. 3 men near the helipad, posing as crew. They're planning to hijack a helicopter this afternoon. They're inside the restricted building near the utility road. He blinked like I'd just told him there was a bear inside the buffet line. Ma'am, are you a guest here? Yeah. I'm also ex-Air Force and currently work in aviation diagnostics. I know what real ground crew looks like. These guys aren't it. He raised an eyebrow. What exactly did you see? I overheard their plan. I have photos. They mentioned codes, landing times, and stealing prototype equipment. He looked unimpressed. And you're sure you didn't misunderstand? I didn't misunderstand anything. Look at the photos. He glanced at the first one, then handed my phone back. We'll check credentials. It's probably just overflow contractors. That's your reaction, I snapped. You've got a major corporate event and an incoming aircraft with high-value cargo. Do you want to be responsible for ignoring a security threat? I said we'll check, he replied, already walking away. You can relax. This isn't a movie. I stared after him, heart pounding, then turned and walked straight to the edge of the parking lot. I pulled out my phone again and called the sheriff's department. This is anonymous, I said when the dispatcher picked up. There's a planned theft happening at the Ridgeview Lodge near Lake Tahoe. Armed suspects are targeting a corporate helicopter scheduled to land this afternoon. They're posing as maintenance crew. Are you in danger right now? The woman asked. Not yet, I said, but someone will be if this isn't taken seriously. She asked for details. I gave them, everything I'd seen, without mentioning my name, my dad, or the gala. When she asked for a callback number, I gave a burner voicemail I use for job inquiries. I hung up and stared back toward the trees. They were still in there, planning, waiting, and the people inside had no idea what was coming. I walked straight past the useless head of lodge security and headed inside. If he wasn't going to do anything, I needed someone who might. I found the lead event coordinator by the main check-in station, flipping through her clipboard like nothing could possibly go wrong on her perfect little timeline. Excuse me, I said. I need 5 minutes. It's important. She glanced up. Mid-40s, sharp suit, tighter smile. Can this wait until after the demo run? No, I said, and handed her my phone. You've got imposters working the grounds near the helipad. 3 confirmed, maybe more. They're planning to hijack the chopper coming in this afternoon. She squinted at the photos. These look like normal tech crew. Except they're not. They're not registered. They're bypassing safety protocols. I heard them talking about access codes and prototype theft. Her eyes narrowed, like she couldn't decide if I was insane or just annoying. I've already called local law enforcement, I added. This isn't a prank. She straightened. You work for Ridgeview? No, I'm a guest. But I'm also a former Air Force aircraft systems tech. This is what I do. She hesitated, then nodded once. Okay, I'll flag it. Quietly. I followed her outside. She pulled her radio from her blazer pocket and spoke low. Unit 6, increase presence around helipad and demo cargo. Quiet movement only. Report any ID badge mismatches. The reply came back staticky. Copy that. Better than nothing. The crowd had gathered now, about 50 yards from the landing zone. Tables with aerospace models, hologram displays. A wall-sized screen looping the company's legacy timeline. My dad stood at the mic, mid-speech. A journey of innovation powered by the brightest minds in engineering, design, and imagination. Today's demonstration marks a handoff to the next generation. I stayed in the back, scanning every staffer near the edge of the platform. A few looked legit. Clipboard types, tight posture, proper safety gear. But then I saw them. 2 more of the guys from earlier. This time, dressed like they belonged. But I knew their faces. One walked fast past the buffet tents, carrying a heavy black case, knuckles white around the handle. The other stuck close to the AV booth, eyes on the cargo truck parked near the landing area. I moved fast, caught the coordinator near the stage stairs. They're here, I said. 2 more. One has a case, probably gear for the job. You need to tighten the perimeter now. She looked irritated, then concerned. You're sure? I'm not guessing, I snapped. If that helicopter lands and your people aren't ready, you'll lose more than a prototype. Someone's going to get hurt. That landed. She clicked her radio again. All units, confirm secondary sweep of tech zone. Secure all demo containers. Do not leave helipad perimeter unstaffed. My heart was racing. The crowd didn't know a thing. They clapped at my dad's next line about pioneering the future of aerospace, while 3 guys were circling a chopper that could touch down any second with millions in classified gear on board. I watched the tree line, still, quiet, but I knew they were moving. Somewhere off to the left, a radio squawked. Then I saw one of the imposters drop the case next to a maintenance crate, unzip it, and slide something behind his back. Metal flashed. I grabbed the coordinator's arm. They're going now. Whatever you're doing, do it faster. She stepped back, speaking into her mic again, this time louder, more clipped. Full lockdown around the pad. Immediate verification on all ground crew. Do it now. Behind us, my dad wrapped up his speech. People clapped, music swelled, and the first low chop of rotor blades echoed across the trees. Too late. The helicopter was inbound. The helicopter came in low, blades cutting the air like a buzzsaw. It hovered for a second before easing down onto the pad, just as the crowd started drifting closer for the big reveal. That's when I saw it. Movement in the tree line, fast and direct. 2 men in coveralls sprinted out from behind the trees, low and tight like they'd done this before. Then the 3rd guy broke from the left, near the AV tent, yanking something from under his jacket. Gun. Get down, I yelled, pushing the nearest guest hard behind a supply table. Move, now, screams broke out. The band stopped mid-chord, folding chairs clattered. One of the attackers made a beeline for the cargo bay, right side of the helicopter. The crew hadn't even stepped out yet. He reached for the latch. I ran. Boots pounding across gravel, legs burning, no time to think. I hit him full force just as his hand touched the bay handle. We both went down hard. My shoulder slammed into his ribs, and he let out a winded grunt. He swung at me with an elbow, caught my jaw, but I came back fast, drove my knee into his gut, and yanked his arm behind him until I heard something pop. Don't move, I snapped, digging my knee into his spine. He squirmed, kicked, but I held on. Then I heard a second shout, near the cockpit. Gun! He's got a gun! I looked up just in time to see another guy, face covered now, charging the pilot's door. Weapon raised, I let go of the guy under me and sprinted across the pad, heart in my throat. The gunman reached the cockpit and threw the door open. Out, now! The pilot's hands went up. I got there just as he turned to climb in. I grabbed his arm, twisted hard, and slammed my elbow straight into his temple. He stumbled, lost grip of the gun, and I kicked it across the pad. He lunged at me, wild, off balance. I ducked, caught him in the ribs, and slammed him face first into the side of the chopper. He crumpled. Someone screamed, "Call the cops!" And finally, the crowd started reacting like they should have 10 minutes ago. I turned to see the third guy, the one who dropped the case earlier, booking it across the display field toward the main lodge. Security was still scrambling, people were yelling, and for a second, no one followed him. "Hey!" I shouted, pointing. "He's getting away!" 2 lodge staff ran after him, but they were slow, too slow. I took off again, lungs burning, sidestepping overturned chairs, and sprinting past the buffet line. I heard another set of footsteps behind me, probably one of the real security guys, finally catching up. But I didn't look back. The guy shoved open the doors to the main building and disappeared inside. I followed, barreling through the lobby, ignoring the stunned gasps of guests still sipping champagne like this was part of the show. I caught sight of him near the ballroom entrance. He turned once, saw me, and picked up speed. Not happening. He ducked through the open doors into the gala hall, and I went right after him. The crowd inside hadn't heard the chaos outside yet. They just saw a man with a case in one hand and a pistol in the other, and then me, 10 steps behind. Everything froze. The guy spun, grabbed the nearest woman by the arm, Victoria. He yanked her close, gun to her side. "Nobody move," people screamed. Some dropped to the floor. Others ran for the side doors. I didn't stop moving. "Let her go," I said, steady voice, hands raised. "You come any closer, I'll shoot her," he barked. I kept walking, slow and firm, every instinct from training kicking in. Behind me, I heard Dad's voice, faint. "Cassie." But I tuned it out. My focus was locked in. "You don't want to do this," I said. "You're panicking. You're losing control. This isn't the plan, right? You're improvising." "Shut up. She's not part of this. Let her go, and I'll help you walk out." He shifted, gun twitching. "You don't know anything." I took another step, and then I lunged. I hit him center mass, knocking his arm up as the shot fired, into the ceiling. Victoria screamed and dropped as I drove him backward, crashing into the dessert table. He tried to bring the gun down on my head, but I caught his wrist, twisted, and jammed my forearm into his throat. He gagged, dropped the weapon. I kicked it away. He tried one last swing. I elbowed him square in the jaw and dropped him cold. Behind me, doors flew open. Cops swarmed in, weapons raised. "Don't shoot," I yelled. "Suspects down." They moved in, cuffed him, secured the room. I looked up and saw my dad standing near the bar, pale, glass still in his hand. He stared at me like I was someone he didn't recognize. He didn't blink, didn't speak, just stared from across the room like I'd punched a hole in the reality he'd built for himself. Dad. Perfect suit. Neat glass of scotch still clutched in one hand. Pale as hell. I stood there, breathing hard, one knee on the guy I'd just dropped, his gun now jammed under the overturned cake table behind us. Victoria was on the floor, shaking, some other woman trying to pull her up. The police stormed in like a damn tidal wave, shouting, moving with hard purpose. 2 officers yanked the guy off the ground and cuffed him face down. One of them looked at me, then did a double take. "You the one who disarmed him?" "Yeah," I said, still catching my breath. "He had her at gunpoint. She's okay." The cop nodded, then waved his partner over to clear the weapon. Another officer turned to the crowd. "Everyone stay in the room. We'll be taking statements." I stepped back as they dragged the guy away. He didn't say a word, just glared at me like I'd cheated the ending of a plan he thought was perfect. Victoria was on her feet now, holding a napkin to a cut on her hand. She looked at me like I'd just walked out of a war zone, which, technically, I had. I spotted Dad again, still by the bar, still not moving. He looked stunned. More than stunned. Shaken. His mouth opened like he wanted to say something, but nothing came out. I walked toward him. 10 steps. 5. He set the scotch down on the bar without looking away from me. "You okay?" I asked, voice flat. He nodded, slow. "You tackled him." "Yeah." "You had a gun pointed at you." Yep. You didn't flinch. I shrugged. Didn't have time to. He blinked again, eyes locked on me like he didn't know what he was seeing. I was about to turn away when he finally said it. I didn't know you could do that, I stared at him. That's the problem. You never asked. He exhaled, ran a hand down his tie, like it was the only thing grounding him. I've spent my entire career talking about innovation and risk management, and my own daughter just neutralized an armed hijacker in a formal dress and combat boots. I glanced down at the grease-slick scuff on my right boot. Not exactly how I planned to make an impression. His jaw tightened. You saved lives today. Yeah, I noticed. He shook his head, like trying to process something too big for the space we were standing in. All those years, I thought I was protecting you from hard paths, from mistakes. No, I said. You were just ignoring mine because they didn't look like yours. He looked away at that, down at the polished floor like it might give him a better answer. You were incredible, he said quietly. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Behind us, someone turned the lights up. Cops started organizing guests into lines for interviews. One of the vendors was sweeping up glass near the door, like we hadn't all just been inches from a tragedy. Dad looked around, then back at me. They'll want to talk to you. Media. Probably even the company. They can talk to security. I'm not giving interviews, I said. I didn't do this for headlines. He nodded. Still, I hope they see it. What you did. I gave him one long look. It's not about what they see. It's about what you never did. That hit harder than I expected. He didn't try to deny it, didn't make excuses. Just stood there, finally seeing me for the first damn time in years. And maybe, just maybe, understanding what it meant to actually show up for someone. By the time I made it back to my room, the internet had already done its thing. Someone had filmed the whole takedown in the gala hall. Bad angle, shaky hands, but clear enough to catch me charging the guy, slamming him into the table, and twisting the pistol out of his hand like I did it every Sunday. By midnight, the clip was all over social media. By 2 a.m., I had 20 unread texts and a voicemail from a local reporter asking for a statement. I turned off my phone. Brunch the next morning felt like walking into a room full of people who'd finally read my resume, but only after I threw someone through a centerpiece. The lodge dining hall buzzed with whispers. Heads turned when I walked in. One woman I didn't know mouthed, "That's her," to her husband, who nearly dropped his mimosa. I grabbed a plate of scrambled eggs and sat at the end of one of the long banquet tables, trying to act like I hadn't choked a man unconscious the day before. Dad showed up late, pressed button down, polished shoes, but quieter than usual. He scanned the room, spotted me, and came straight over. "Cassie," he said, resting a hand on my shoulder. "I'd like you to meet a few people." I didn't move, just kept chewing. He gestured to a group of executives standing nearby. "This is my daughter, Cassie, former Air Force, specializes in aviation systems diagnostics and rapid response support." One of them raised an eyebrow. "Ah, the one from the video." "The one who stopped a heist," Dad said. No hesitation. I almost spit out my coffee. He kept going. "She works in high-stakes commercial aviation. Handles systems most people in this room couldn't pronounce." I turned slowly and looked at him. Was he serious? Because this guy, this man who'd introduced me for years like I was a tire shop assistant, was now reciting my bio like it belonged on a LinkedIn feature. The executive shook my hand. "Hell of a move, Cassie. You're not injured, are you?" "No," I said. "Not even bruised." Another guy asked if I'd ever worked with military UAVs. A woman nearby said her company might want to collaborate on a consulting basis. Dad stood back, nodding like he'd spent years supporting me. I wanted to laugh, or leave. Instead, I just sipped my coffee and stared at the TV on the wall above the buffet line. News. "Unfolded during a private corporate gala," the anchor said. Cell phone video shows a woman in formal wear intercepting one of the suspects, identified as a former contractor with a stolen badge. Sources say she neutralized the threat before law enforcement arrived. Someone turned the volume up. The screen flashed a still image of me mid-tackle. Dress boots, sleeves rolled, hair half out of place. It was brutal and raw and unedited. "The woman has been identified as Cassie Jameson," the anchor continued, "a veteran of the United States Air Force and current aircraft systems specialist. Officials say her actions likely prevented the theft of sensitive corporate technology. She's being called the hero who stopped an industrial heist. Forks hit plates all down the table. I looked at Dad. He wasn't smiling, not exactly, but something shifted in his face. His eyes didn't dodge mine for once. He looked stunned, like something finally clicked. Then he dropped his fork. After brunch, he caught me near the elevator. "Cassie," he said, almost quiet. "Can we talk? Just us." I didn't answer right away. "It's not about the media," he added. "I just want to talk." I nodded once. "All right, tonight." We met at the hotel bar around 8. It was mostly empty, just a few business types nursing overpriced scotch, and one couple arguing softly near the back booths. He picked a table near the window, away from the lobby, where nobody would eavesdrop or interrupt with congratulations. For the first time all weekend, he didn't come with a speech. He just looked tired, not weak, but stripped down, like someone finally peeled off the corporate layer he wore like armor. He started slow. "I never knew what your day-to-day looked like," he said, folding his hands on the table. "I thought, well, honestly, I didn't think much at all. You said mechanic, and I stopped listening." I didn't let him off easy. "You didn't just stop listening," I said. "You disrespected me, every chance you got." He nodded. "No excuses." "You're right," I waited. "I thought if you didn't go the college path, the executive path," he continued, "you were throwing away your potential, that you'd settle for something beneath you." I didn't realize how narrow that made me. "You didn't think I could do anything without a title you could brag about." He didn't argue. He didn't even blink. "I didn't see the value," he said. "That's on me." We sat in silence for a second while the bartender changed the channel behind us. Finally, he looked at me. "What you did yesterday, it wasn't just brave. It was professional, tactical. You didn't panic. You assessed the threat, moved fast, neutralized it. I've spent 30 years surrounded by engineers and analysts. None of them could have handled that the way you did." "I wasn't trying to impress anyone," I said. "That's just my job. It's what I'm trained to do." He nodded slowly. "Tell me about it. Your job now, I mean." So I did. I told him about system diagnostics at 30,000 feet, about cold starts in frozen hangars, about late-night field ops with no room for error. I told him how pilots trust us to get them home safe, how one missed decimal can ground a flight or worse. He listened, really listened, not with a fake smile, not scanning the room for someone else to impress. Just eyes on me, no interruptions. "I used to think it was all about prestige," I said. "Titles, networks, handshakes. But the world I work in, it's about trust. Doesn't matter what school you went to or what your business card says. It's about whether people know you'll show up when it counts." He leaned back, let that sink in. "I get it now," he said. "And I'm sorry." "For the gala?" I asked, arms crossed. He shook his head. "For everything before it. For the years I made you feel small." That landed harder than I expected. He meant it. Not just words to patch things over, no performance, just a man finally realizing what he'd missed. I finished my drink and stood up. "I don't need you to tell people who I am," I said. "But if you're going to introduce me, get it right." He nodded. "I will." I turned to leave, then paused. "I'm not angry anymore," I added. "But I'm not waiting for your approval either. You can walk beside me, or not." His reply was quiet. "I'll walk." He stayed at the table after I walked out. I didn't look back. I flew home the next morning, slept like hell on the flight, didn't even unpack right away. Just dumped my bag on the floor and crashed on the couch with my boots still on. 3 days later, I got the call. Promotion confirmed. Senior team lead, aerospace response ops. Bigger projects, better contracts, direct coordination with field units, and emergency flight tech crews. They said the gala incident didn't factor in officially, but I knew damn well it didn't hurt. A week after that, a letter showed up. Actual paper, my dad's handwriting on the envelope. Inside, "Cassie." I framed the article. I keep it in my office now. Not for bragging, just so I remember to stop underestimating people. "Let me take you to lunch soon." No occasion, just lunch. It wasn't poetic, wasn't emotional, but it was real. We met the following Friday, Casual Cafe in Midtown Sacramento. He wore jeans, which I'd never seen before in my life. Didn't bring a binder, didn't ask for the best table. He just asked about my schedule, my team, the new projects I'd be leading. And he didn't nod blankly, he listened. Took in every acronym, every example. Even laughed when I told him about the new guy on my crew, who thinks everything can be fixed with duct tape and prayer. You sound like you actually enjoy it, he said. I do, I told him. It's a mess sometimes, but it matters. He nodded. You do real work, important work. No audience, no spotlight. He meant it. 2 weeks after that, he showed up at one of my training demos. Quiet in the back, arms crossed, just watching as I walked a new batch of hires through a live sim. He came up afterward. You're good at that, he said. Thanks, I said. I've had practice. We're not best friends now, not calling each other every night, but it's different. He sends articles he thinks I'll like, asks before giving advice, doesn't lead with job titles when he introduces me anymore. Just says, this is my daughter Cassie. She works in aviation ops. I used to think I needed his approval to feel like I'd made it. Turns out I didn't. I'd already made it years ago. He just needed time to catch up.